Hello there, tubby fuckers, and welcome to Horrorphobia, a spooky movie review podcast for the horror lovers and horrorphobics alike. I'm your host, Jake. Next to me is my wife, Emily.
Hey.
All the way across the internet is our friend, Ryan.
Why am I not the slutty internet?
That's not the point. Let's just say hi.
Hi.
We're in the introductions.
Yeah.
And all across the very, very slutty internet. We have our friends Ian and Jake.
Hey.
Guten Dog.
All right. We are a group of lifelong friends who review horror movies. Why horror movies? Because I love them and I like forcing everybody else to watch them.
And I'm slutty.
And Ryan, the only rift in our relationship has been he won't let me force him to watch. I honestly, for the most part, you've been pretty good about me letting me make you watch more movies for the most part.
I'm doing this podcast.
Well, yeah, no, but I mean, like, other than like, I don't think you've. I mean, you fought me on a few movies, but not like a ton of movies. Our entire friendship.
I thought you were gonna say you wouldn't let you finger his butt.
Really forced things upon him.
I mean, he's never let me, and I don't think I could. It's
wow.
It's hairy.
Dude. My ass is too tight. It's like Fort Knox, dude.
It get caught up in the brambles.
There's a lot of dogwood in there, yeah. First, we'll begin with a spoiler-free review. We review on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being and 10 being.
Okay. That noise sounded like shit, and I won't even edit it because this shittiness sounded great.
We will go around and get everyone's score for the film. Then Ryan, acting as a resident scaredy cat. I want to say scaredy pants, and it says scaredy cat.
It's President Scaredy Cat, you fuck. Show some respect.
Well, I'm reading the script. We can change it, but until then, acting as a resident scaredy cat will rate the scare factor of each film. Then we will transition to our spoiler-filled walkthrough of the film, including behind-the-scenes info, critical reception upon release, production upon box office gross, and our own personal likes and dislikes of the film. And then we'll probably play some games, and we'll do the blow jibber of the week, and it'll be fun.
Good time.
So much.
Good old time.
It'll be a funny game.
Well, speaking of funny games, we are reviewing funny games this week from 2007 and 1997.
Both.
And
both them.
This is going to be kind of a different episode because there's not much to talk about as far as plot. But we will do our damnedest. Yeah, I didn't even write a synopsis because like there's what am I gonna do with it? What am I gonna do with it? You know?
Yeah.
So here it is. Funny Games is a story about two psychopathic young men that take a family hostage in their lakeside vacation home. My review of Funny Games. Funny Games is the horror film equivalent to those moments in certain porn videos when the girl in the video mocks you for masturbating to it. It takes moments of violence that we've seen in other films and have had fun while watching, and this movie makes you feel like the dirtiest little boy for watching it and enjoying. Haneke, the director and scriptwriter, states that both films were not intended to be horror films. He says he wanted to make a message about violence in the media by making an incredibly violent but otherwise pointless film. That he has achieved. This is a very polarizing film, but it's one of those films I feel like I watched as a teenager and I understood what he was going for, and I loved it then and I love it now, despite all its very intentional thorns that it sticks inside you. It's hard to say which film is better, seeing as they're basically exactly the same. But I will say that as far as actor performance, I always find myself so infatuated and enthralled by the performances of the two antagonists in the American version of the film. But because of the cold, cynical savagery both of these films show, it definitely makes a story you won't likely revisit. Unless that is, of course, you want to introduce it to someone new and watch the horror in their face as the story unfolds. As much as I love this film, I flinched at the thought of watching it again. So I'm giving this film 7.5 cats in a bag.
That's good.
Someone's was stolen.
So yeah. I was like, if I'm always going to be the first one, I might as well take the obvious one because
Yeah, that's true.
like people are going to be like, he's going to take it. Like,
point.
I mean, always have a backup, I guess.
Yeah.
Ryan, what are you giving this film?
I'll read my review first, and then we'll get there. So let's see here. When trying to write a review for Funny Games, I found it extremely difficult to think of words to describe this film other than uncomfortable. So, with my limited vocabulary, instead of consulting a thesaurus, I try to think of why exactly it makes me feel this way. Was it the invasive nature of the antagonists, the gaslighting, the senseless violence? I still can't put my finger on it. I think I understand the point of this film, but then again, it's clear that even the point being that there is no point is a bit of a misdirection. The only thing I can say for sure is that this movie does exactly what it wanted to do in a way I don't think could ever be replicated without literally filming it again shot for shot, which they did. However you feel about this movie, you will think about it, you will talk about it, and that's an accomplishment in itself. And I gave it a 9 out of 10 fourth wall breaks.
Awkward!
Nice, dude.
That's good.
Nice. All right. So Ian, what do you give this film? What were your impressions of this film?
So yeah, I mean, I saw the American remake a few years ago, and I really enjoyed it. And after watching the Austrian version and digging into Haneke's intentions of the film, I enjoyed it even more. And it's a psychological thriller that's unpredictable, and it uses comfort and chaos to play funny games with our minds. And yeah, I mean, I would say my only dislike would be what host Jake brought up is rewatching these movies. You're not going to get the same effect of like what's going on. Um, but yeah, I enjoy the movie, so I would give it 8 out of 4 or 8.4 out of 10 jelly rolls.
Can I offer you a nice egg in this trying time?
You finally got one out without it getting stolen.
I know. I just want to get that over with. So no,
All right.
I had backups for sure.
All right. So Emily, what are you giving this film?
I've only seen this movie twice. This is the second time I've seen this movie, and I remembered it shot for shot. And I have the worst memory, so I feel like that stands for how good or impactful the movie is. So I'm gonna give it an 8 out of 10 broken limbs, rendering me useless to my family.
Nice.
Has that ever happened to you?
Oh, fantastic.
All right. Jake. Other Jake, what are you giving this film?
Jimmy.
This is one of my favorite movies. It's going to get my highest rating. I gave it a 9.1 golf balls.
Yeah.
I think to get all of these actors in across multiple countries and time to do such a good job and to understand what a director wanted was really well executed. Everything from the set design to the scenes and holding a camera that long and on a scene to make a scene uncomfortable without I imagine was a pretty grueling process for these actors, but it gave us what we got, and it was I've always enjoyed it. And every subsequent watch I've gotten more and more out of the movie. Just delving in for this podcast, I got more than I could handle in the philosophy of this movie, and it'll probably absorb me for the next month, I would say.
Yeah. I'm going to put a caveat on my rating. This would be a 10 out of 10 for me. Like, I think it's a perfect movie, like, for what it is. Like, I don't think it did a damn thing wrong other than it not being rewatchable. The only thing that brings it down a point for me is that I love this movie to death. I don't ever want to watch it again. And that
10
says
out
a
of
lot to
10.
me.
Yeah, two.
So
Yeah.
Get this shit away from me. 10 out of
yeah,
10.
exactly. Well, okay, so I'm not a good reviewer, obviously. I was planning on watching both these movies, right?
Yeah.
I watched the 1997 version first, without taking notes, thinking that I'm like, I'll just take notes on the 2007 version because that's the one that I've seen.
Mhm.
I
And
could
you can
not watch
understand
it.
it in the background.
Yeah, I could not watch it again. I was like, guess I have no notes going into this episode because I could not watch it. It was so and I loved it and it ruined me. So it's but it's amazing. You know what I mean? It's just there's no other movie like it, and like Jake said in his review, like it's amazing and you never want to watch it again. And that's the only reason it's not a 10 for me. But a 9 out of 10 is my highest score yet. And yeah, it's great.
Yeah, I mean, like for me, I mean, like my on the spectrum ass self, I keep an ongoing list of my favorite horror films, and I always keep this at the bottom because of my like connected emotions to this film because it's so fucking I don't know, it's one of those films I've seen this. I don't remember the first time that I've seen this, but it was definitely as a teenager. I was definitely probably about 17, 18, maybe younger.
Yeah.
Um,
I
but
probably
it's
fall. Sorry.
no, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, like, I probably fall a little bit in between, like, other Jake and you guys as far as rewatching it. Like, I watched this movie once, like 4 years ago or so, and I enjoyed watching it again. And even more, the more and more I researched about it, the more and more like I could pick up on certain like quotes they make that kind of help, you know, bring out the intention of the director, and so it's a little bit more deep of a movie, to me than just watching it and not watching again. I don't know.
Hmm.
It wasn't. It
Yeah.
was. It's not that.
I think it's because there's almost so little to watch.
Yeah.
Like that you start to be like, well, if I have to watch
Th-
this again, or if I
Yeah.
find myself watching this again,
Yeah.
I'm going to find stuff, to, and I mean, that's done deliberately. Uh, that's how he didn't want, I mean, we'll get into it later, but he didn't want to spoon feed his audience something. He wanted them to derive meaning, which I always liked about it. I'm like, that's why it adds so much for me to rewatch it. And I don't do it very often because I want there to be a little bit of, oh, I don't remember quite what this was or what that was, or, um, so it leaves me searching for it and, reaching out for meaning, even though it is not
Yeah.
there.
I mean, for me, I mean, like I guess comparing the two films, I think he accomplished what he wanted with the first film because the like I mentioned in my written review, like in the American film, I'm so just drawn in by both those actors that play Tom, Jerry, and Peter, and you know
Beavis
Beavis,
and Butthead.
Beavis and Butthead, and all the I'm like both those actors are so like I'm so drawn in. Like I remember when I was younger, this was during like the Christopher Nolan, uh, Batman trilogy, and I wanted the main actor or the main antagonist in this film to be like their Riddler because I thought he did such a good job. And that I felt like this
Mm.
was a movie
Mm-hmm.
like that was an audition for another type of villain in another series. Is kind of how I've felt about. But like I feel like in the when you watch the Austrian, they're not quite as charismatic. So like I feel like it Austrian film very much feels like a borderline snuff film where it feels like there's no other point other than you're just watching these people get murdered. You
Yeah.
know?
It's
Yep.
so much darker too. If like I'm watching a side by side now, and the overall like lighting in these movies, and it might have been just a budgetary thing in the like he had less backing behind
Yeah.
the original, but it's so like so bright, and the whites are so white. Even the main like the Peter character, I think it is Peter Paul. I don't really know. They're-
Paul is the main guy. Peter's the one
Paul,
that's like
okay,
kind of like the sidekick.
chubby. Uh, so Paul, like his shirt is like it's almost like a beige, and like even just the wife's dress, the interior of the house, their eyes, like everything in the American version is like bleached white, like perfect
Mhm.
white, bright, and then in the it's almost like in the Austrian one, it seems like almost like someone smoked for
Yeah. It's
years.
so
It's like yellow. It's like
Yeah.
yellow tinted.
so dull.
Yeah, no,
And I
it
think
had,
that was one of the reasons he if I was going to put one thing on what he wanted to remake was to remake it so it would have that cleaner like aesthetic, like that shiny brightness to it to almost
Mhm.
offset the dark themes of the movie. And even
Yeah.
just what you were saying with the Nolan, like those movies have such a black and dark, like everything is like shaded down, like grayed out and black, and this movie is so bright, the American one.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think like also like I mentioned it in our Google Doc, for this episode about how I wanted to talk about the difference between the second antagonist and the Austrian version is actually kind of chubby, and the American version is completely not overweight at all. I mean, he's just uh eating in the film, but like there's nothing really. I wouldn't call him tubby, and I wonder if that's also like kind of connected to that like shiny version of like showing like unrealistic standards in
Yeah. It's
American
Americanized.
cinema. Yeah,
Commercialized.
Yeah.
yeah, like because like the Austrian version, like the second antagonist is like I wouldn't call him overweight, but he's like his belly moves when he laughs. Um
I
and
suppose we should go ahead.
no, go ahead. No, I
Oh, I was just gonna say, I suppose we should mention. So we are reviewing both of these movies, and our scores for them, like mine applies to both.
yeah.
Mine
Um,
did as well.
the-
Yeah. Yeah.
okay,
Yeah,
so
no,
it's around the board. Like our scores are just for both because they are shot for shot. Like
yeah,
this.
no, for like I said, for me, like the pro of the Austrian version is the groundedness, the the protagonists, their crying is a lot more believable in the Austrian
Mhm.
version,
Yes.
but in the American version, the antagonists are just so charismatic, and I'm so drawn in. Like, so I like them for completely different reasons, but like they're virtually the same film, and like so I give them the exact same score. But like I like them for completely different reasons. Like
Right.
if someone wanted to get into a intellectual debate about which one's better, I'd be like, I think they're better, just as good for different reasons. So that's just me.
Take it to
Yeah.
another podcast.
Um,
Uh, I was going to say before we got into the spoiler section, I might as well go into like my original experience with the trailer, and it goes off of what Jake was saying with the two antagonists. Was the I don't know. I tracked down trailers always seem to change. It's hard to find the one that you're interested in, but I think I found it. But I remember it was I was in high school, and it was probably 2006 or early 2007. I don't remember when the movie came out, but it's when I was like my first few, like my freshman and sophomore year of high school. I was a good student, and then I remember this movie corresponding, and a lot of other movies as well. It's when I really got into movies, but uh, in like a computer lab or a study lab, I remember that one of the few things you could do. Um, because all like the internet at school was like it blocked everything you wanted to do that was interesting or fun. But we had like like a partnership program with Apple, so their website wasn't blocked, and you could always go to their website and watch movie trailers. And I used to just spend hours in class. Like my teachers liked me, so they'd let me just like have like study periods a lot. So like they just let me go down to the library, which I instantly started abusing, and I would just watch movie trailers like crazy. And this was one that because you'd get a lot of ones like international movies or weird ass movies that you're like, oh, this is not gonna even make it into a theater around me or anything. Um, but this was one of those ones that stuck out to me, and I would watch this trailer over and over. And I can't remember what music piece they played. It wasn't played in the movie. Like it's not one of the ones
Yeah.
we'll get into later. I think
Hmm.
you might know which
I
which
feel like it was. I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you, but I
might have been
feel
in
like
the Hall of the Mountain King.
it was like something super playful. Like I feel like it was like Dance of the Sugar Plum Fairy or some shit.
Yeah,
Like it was like a very like Home Alone like kind of
super
playful. Like
playful.
I remember
Yeah,
it gave me a different vibe for what this film is. Um
absolutely. But it
like where
sucked me in.
it made it, yeah, it made it seem kind of like it was good, it was genuinely going to be kind of like a fun kind of like home invasion film.
Yeah,
um so like like that's all I remember. So I remember like my mind canon is like the like I said, Dance of the Sugar or whatever, the Sugar Plum Fairy from Nutcracker, the dun, 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 or whatever it is. I'm not gonna do it. um
Do it.
no.
drop
But
it
like,
in.
but either way, like, yeah, I mean, my association's similar with other Jakes in the sense that like I remember watching the trailer, and I also remember my friend Corey on social media, like, because this was, the American version came out in 2007, so it's also close to, Facebook being, like in almost every home in like 2008, 2009. Um, and I remember my friend Corey on his Facebook when it was like favorite movies. It was like multiple movies, and it was like then beneath it was like not funny games, definitely not funny games, and that piqued my interest when like Jake and I like had seen it. I think at Family Video, first time I had seen it was when we rented it from there.
Yeah, I
And
think I remember. I think you and I watched it together the first time I saw it.
okay, all right, like I didn't know for sure whether or not
I'm
you had seen
almost
it.
positive. Yeah,
Yeah, okay. Um, and so like the fact that somebody had like a gross aversion to this film like really piqued my interest.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Give me that.
Sure.
I was just recommended by I think you other Jake, Jimmy. I
Tubby.
think you were like you get
Tubby.
I think you were like, dude, you gotta watch this movie. And I watched it. I remember
Yeah, because
up
we
in
were
the
all
attic.
living. Yeah, we were all living together at the time. That was my first time
I
watching it.
thought it was before that. I
No,
thought
it was no. The original time
way
I
before.
watched it was like that was back when
Oh.
Jake's parents still lived in that house,
Oh.
Yeah,
and Jake's room was where your room is right now, like up in the
Yeah.
attic.
yeah.
And I
I remember
think,
that. I think it's because you said I don't like horror movies. I'm like, well, this really isn't a horror movie.
yeah, and
It'll
I
just
remember
make your
watching
skin
it.
crawl.
I liked it then, but I just remember just being like, whoa,
Yeah.
like it
Huh.
was like. And honestly, I think it affected me more now, like this time watching it, than it did then. Because I think it just I was so young. I just think there was so much I didn't really get what they were trying to say.
Oh my
But
God.
and now it's just it hit me in such a way that like I said, I couldn't even watch the other one. I couldn't like I have a job to do here, and I couldn't even complete it.
You've
Like
you've
You couldn't watch the
you've
American version?
I didn't want to watch it. I did after I watched the Austrian version. I was just like, no, I'm good. I'm
Is it
done.
because you just wanted to pay the $2 to Amazon?
you've onboarded more trauma to understand
Oh
the
god
movie.
damn it! You've outed me, dude.
I had to
Yeah,
rent that
dude.
I'm a
shit.
cheap bastard.
Awkward.
So yeah, I know. I just like my initial experience watching it was just recommend because like we said, like it's like the only time you rewatch this movie is when you're like,
Oh,
yo,
yeah.
you gotta watch this movie.
Yeah,
You know what I
it's
mean?
when
And
you
then
start a podcast and you have to review it, so you have to watch it
exactly,
again.
exactly. I know you were probably going to lead us there anyway, but just so we don't forget, like my scare rating,
Yeah, I was
Yes.
gonna
right?
go. Yeah, that was my
Low.
next thing. Yep.
Okay. What's the lowest you can go? Am I allowed to do 0 or 1? Like, what's
No, go with one. I mean, like,
okay?
I would like. I feel like you would still want to brace people for the fact that this movie is uh upsetting. You know.
Oh, but it's not
Is it
scary.
is it your scare rating,
Yeah,
Jake?
but it's upsetting.
Oh,
Yes,
I'm
but like
sorry.
7 pounds is upsetting.
I
You know what I
I
mean?
I guess. Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
it's like it's not. There's no frightening imagery. There's no body horror really.
No.
It's just fucked up.
Yeah.
Like
It's more of a thriller than a horror film.
so on the but it's
Rate it.
horrifying
Rate
in a
it by.
different way.
Rate it. How many therapy sessions?
Yeah.
10. Like it's the most fucked up movie I've ever seen. So on
Yeah.
the fucked up scale, it's a 10, but it's not like scary. It's just one of those things that like if I'm lying awake losing sleep over this, it's not because I'm looking at my closet thinking something's going to get me. It's because I'm having an
It's
existential
existential dread.
crisis. Yes. You know what I mean? It is a completely different type of horror.
Well, I
I
mean,
do believe
this wouldn't happen to you because you're not one of those elite whites.
exactly.
my
I'm too
God.
poor for this ever
The
to happen to me.
Yeah.
My credit score is way too low to ever be invaded like this.
damn dude.
I was gonna say along the same lines because this is spoiler. This is spoiler free too, I guess. But along the same lines of as working in like a like an adult care home, like a hospice, like recently and like pretty much my whole life, like my mom has always done like cleaning gigs, like jobs and stuff. Like
Mhm.
I've like this past summer I worked at the institution, and this reminds me of like the lake estates uh around our hometown lake that I've
Hmm.
always been like I've cleaned like a bunch of those
Yeah.
places that always make me think of this movie. I'm like,
But a
Sure.
little freaked out while cleaning them. Like, oh,
Wait. So
no,
you.
no, I'm
So
like,
you.
could I be a charismatic murderer who takes a turn?
you went the other way with it.
Yeah.
Of course.
That's funny.
You know me?
Wait. Wait.
You went the complete opposite. You're like, can I be the sociopath?
Wait, am I? Can
So
I
you.
borrow some eggs?
Yeah.
So
Is that where
it
it's
is. This was filmed in Long Island, New York, the
Yeah.
American film.
okay?
Which I thought like because like at the end of the film you like I saw some plants that I thought were more southern like flora and fauna, but it was took place in like it was filmed the out exterior shots were in the American film were
It
filmed in
reminds
Long
me of New England for sure.
Island. So Ryan says this movie's not spooky at all.
Nope.
So
What
without
happened?
further fucking ado, let's get into spoilers.
Let's do it.
Hailong.
Very
You know
native.
Hailong? You know Hailong?
No,
You know the band Hailong?
I don't.
Look it up on YouTube. It's pretty fucking dope.
Right now?
No, but later. Look it up.
Okay.
All right. So this film begins with a game amongst a husband and a wife and a bitchy ass son trying to guess fucking who sang opera and from what.
I
So,
think
I'm-
in they're already opening with a comparison between the two movies, the Austrian and the American. The son in the one, the Austrian, he's just playing along and attentively looking out the window, and in the American version, he's playing a PSP,
Oh
yeah, dude.
just like Jake would have been doing.
yeah.
How's Jake?
um,
Uh,
I fucking like one of the only things I've ever hated about this film, talking from watching the American version first, I fucking hate that kid in the American version, which is
Yes.
funny
Yes,
because
I liked them better in the Austrian version for sure.
which
Definitely.
Tim Roth has never watched this film because and apparently filming this film fucked him up because the kid that they cast as his son looks like his actual son.
Oh
So he doesn't
yeah,
like. So he has
yep.
not watched this film and will not watch this film.
Yeah. I
And
was so
he
glad
said
when
it.
he got killed.
I
He's
like
Yeah.
got
that.
a price. You could make him if you paid him enough money, he'd watch it.
Oh,
Everybody's got a fucking price.
I mean,
No,
he
but I
got.
like that little bit of lore behind the film. Is like
Yeah,
Tim Roth, who I think, I mean, he's been, I mean, I've liked him in a lot of movies, but
yeah.
I don't know if he's been in other. I mean, I'm sure he's been in other horror movies. I
Mhm.
can't really think of
Well,
any.
speaking of price, the budget and box office for this movie.
Oh yeah, let's do that first.
Uh, yeah. Well, so I wasn't able to find the 1997 version. I don't know why. I don't know if it's they just didn't keep track of it for some reason, or I saw something that someone posted like a comment saying that like the 1997 version only made like 5K in American, but it
Mm.
must have made a lot more. But like the 2007 version, the budget was 15 million, which seems kind of high for what it was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Sure.
um, but the box office was only 8.2 million. Uh,
Oh,
about so little, yeah, about half. Uh, I don't, I don't know if with a movie like this though, you're really setting out to make a profit. It's more of the message.
Well, I mean, like, I mean, I think, like, supposedly, according to Michael Haneke, the reason he redid this was because it wasn't popular in America and he wanted it to be. So he decided, to use his clout, in the modern, two millennia to make an like pretty much carbon copy of his original Austrian version for American audiences. So I think
Yeah,
that's kind of uh, not intentional, but like I think yeah. I mean, I think I think what you're getting at is that I think he definitely is trying to tell the American audiences something through this film.
yeah. It's just weird. Like the 15 million budget kind of like is weird because I feel like you
They
could have
must
made
have
this
somebody
an 8
lives in that
million.
house. One of the producers lives in that house, like that. Like
Yeah,
it's probably
I-
fucking right off the Catskills in fucking New York.
I bet Naomi Watts got a big chunk of that.
that's it. It's Naomi Watts, which she is a fox, dude. Oh
that's
my
what I'm
god.
saying.
Looks good.
Fox, a fox.
Naomi
Never
Watts
saw,
is a fox.
never saw
I
them
think so.
titties.
You never see them
Fuck.
titties, but god damn it, you want to.
Back to the walkthrough. So they're guessing the song. They're obviously going to like their vacation lakeside home, possibly for the weekend, maybe a little bit longer. And they
They
come
got a
upon their
boat in
neighbor.
tow.
Yeah, they got a boat in tow. They drive up on their neighbors that they're playing golf with the following day, and they say, "What's up, fuckers? You can't be practicing like that because they're out in the yard with two strangers and their golf club, and they they notice the son notices that the daughter is missing, and they just continue on back to their home, and son can't get over that for a little bit and keeps on talking about it as they load the boat into or set up the shit. I'm doing a bad walkthrough. I'm sorry.
No, you're fine.
So either way, they pull into their house and start unpacking everything, and the dog's being a dickhead. All of a sudden, the friend that they're playing golf with the following day and one of the strangers shows up to help them put the boat in the water. So they're bringing they're putting the boat in the water, and then Peter shows up and starts talking to the wife and starts asking for eggs, and uh, and she's all like,
Can I offer you a nice egg in this trying time?
and he's like, yes, but I would love some eggs, and
Oh god, the eggs were so weird. Like it
like
was such a weird because of the way he was asking. It was like the most invasive politeness you can possibly imagine.
Yeah,
Imagine the
it's
most polite person you can, but like standing like a bubble burster. They're standing so close to you.
He closes distance so fast that when she's wrapping the eggs in
yeah.
both movies, he does it so good, and you could tell he's stalking her, and he's thinking of ways he can get that cell phone in the water.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, it was the first moment of me. It was like, what's going on here? Like I'm like something's gonna happen here.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
Mhm.
you know,
I feel like her response to like you I feel like it was weird how aggressive she was reacting, but I can't think of any other way to react to someone being that weird
Well,
about
no,
asking for things. Like,
that's what the gaslighting, right? So this is what I was
yeah,
talking about. With this entire scene, there is you're watching it and it the way it gradually builds in the slowest way that you can possibly build to the most awkward and invasive behavior, but like you can't quite pinpoint
right.
what they did wrong. So when they keep asking her, so the other guy comes in too. So Paul and Peter are both there. He breaks the eggs. He's asking for more eggs, whatever. He keeps asking for more eggs because shit keeps going wrong with the eggs. And she wants them gone because something's fucking weird, obviously, but she can't even describe
Yeah.
like what's happening. And so when the husband comes in and is like, what's going on here? And she's like, throw them out. And he's like, why? Like what? And like they're like, oh, have we done something? Like we're sorry or whatever. And like he's like, can you explain what's going on? And she literally can't
Yeah.
because I. How would you explain that? How would
Yeah.
you be like, they came over and asked for eggs?
Yeah.
That's what happened. You
Yeah,
know what I
and not
mean?
like and like to kind of pull back and like compare the two. Like I feel like this is one of those scenes that I feel like works better in the American version, where you kind of like you can kind of understand. Maybe it's a language barrier thing, but like I could understand. I could feel the awkwardness in the American version more than I could in
definitely.
the Austrian version in this scene, especially.
Hmm. Yeah, but I mean, I could still feel it in the Austrian version
Oh,
watching
for
it.
sure, for sure.
Now I get what you're saying though. There are some. It's kind of tough because I feel like certain like inflections and nuances in a person's voice is different. So you can't exactly tell how awkward or like polite but rude they're being. You know what I mean? Like they're
Plus, a lot of
talking.
Europeans say everything like really deadpan anyway
Yeah,
when they're like being rude or like what us Americans consider as rude. They're
my
very
favorite part of that
matter of fact.
scene was when she's getting the second eggs and she's like, maybe I should wrap them this time, and he's like, whatever you want, like whatever, and she's like, oh okay, and she doesn't wrap them and goes to hand them to him, and he's like, you're not gonna wrap them.
Yeah,
Like I that was like the only time I think that I audibly laughed because I
yeah,
was
yeah,
just like, oh
Yeah.
my god,
yeah, for
like
sure.
Yeah.
oh,
Who
so
Well,
you're not
in
gonna
their
wrap
right mind throws away a perfectly good case of eggs this day and age? It's a sick world, don't you think?
I think that's something we haven't really talked about too much is and it's fucked up, but how funny this movie is.
Oh
Like
sure.
oh yes,
it is a funny movie. It's almost like it's a default because it's like you don't want to almost jump and feel anything else,
Mhm.
but you're like, I don't want to admit it, but a lot of this shit is just funny.
yeah,
Yeah. Just these
well
interactions. Like even it's just when she sits back in the kitchen and like laughs at herself and undoes her hair. It's
yeah,
like
it's just like woof.
I
Like
life hits you with so many of those and I've had like I said like working with like rich people who in general want to be above it all and not want to make things awkward, but like you're their lesser, like you're their like employee or you're their help, like they don't want to
mhm.
be rude, but they are also like you'll have these interactions that are just awkward, like to where it's like if you have any sort of a spine and you're like, well, you give any pushback, they're like, yeah, well, it's like they'll do that thing where it's like it kind of twists you in knots, and like if if you let it keep going, they'll keep pushing back, and like you'll be in the house with them, cleaning around them. It's honestly making me sound like I'm gonna kill some of these people eventually. But it's like it can get awkward, and you have these interactions at any job or like any sort of like forced interaction with people. Sometimes you'll get into interactions where it's just you get into these funny situations where you're just like, I just have to laugh this off. That
Yeah,
was so
Mhm.
awkward
shake your
and
head
weird.
and leave.
You
It's
know, like
it's a had to be there situation. Like
exactly.
it's like describing a dream. Like you ever had a dream that you're like, this dream was fucking crazy, and you explain it to somebody and they're just like, huh?
For
Like
sure.
That crazy, not that crazy.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Like
Yeah.
that's what this scene is. It's like the most insane thing boiled down, no pun intended, to someone asking for eggs.
Boiled egg.
Boiled
Yeah.
eggs. That was
I
the
think
pun.
That's the joke. That's the
Thank
fun
you.
part.
Thank you. I'll be here all fucking never again.
I think my
And-
favorite part of her dialogue is when I think he says like, I'll I forget their name, but he's basically like, I'll tell Ava like how kind you are or something. And like at that point she's so frustrated and flustered, she's just like, do what you have to.
Yeah.
And I think
Yes.
that's a direct translation from the Austrian to where like Jake was saying, like there is like a dry, like matter of fact way Europeans usually talk. And I think that is uh almost like the American version of that. I think New Englanders are more like that anyway, which isn't implied in this movie. Like we don't get a location, but it's maybe something she wouldn't say. But in the Austrian, I think it's the same thing. It's like, do what you have to do. I'm over it.
Mhm.
Like I'm so exhausted with you at this point. Like especially them just coming into they're still trying to get unpacked.
Yeah.
Like we've all been there to where it's like I have to cut up all this fucking meat. I got to wash all these vegetables. Like
Yep.
she's
Mhm.
stressed out anyway. They're just setting
Yeah.
shit up and trying to get into their vacation.
Yeah. So either way, uh, was it Peter or no? Paul.
Paul's the main one.
Oh, all right. Well, either,
Paul's the main guy. Peter's like the sidekick.
well, Tubby leaves. All right. I'm just gonna call him Tubby. So Tubby leaves, and just like other Jake mentioned, she kind of undoes her hair and laughs it off, and then she starts hearing the dog bark or whatever, and then he comes back and said that the dog jumped on him and that he dropped the eggs, and she's just all like, what the
Who in their right mind throws away a perfectly good case of eggs this day and age? It's a sick world, don't you think?
It was actually Georgie who first asked her for a knife,
Oh,
specifically a sharp knife, and then he immediately comes back. She says, "I'd like to see it again," which is foreshadowing again. He comes immediately back and says, "There's someone at the door," you know,
Right.
and it's Paul again, or no, Peter. Fuck, Chubby.
yeah.
Chubby Peter.
Yeah.
So either way, he comes back, explains the situation, and then there's a very awkward exchange where he's like, so can I have more eggs?
He's like,
And
you got 4 left. Oh yeah, that was the other line, was like, it's a dozen if I'm not if I'm not mistaken, right? Like-
Yeah.
No,
and she's like, well, I've got friends maybe, and he's like, you don't have friends, you stupid bitch. That's 8 eggs total.
8
are you
down.
following
That
along,
this
folks?
guy has fucked up. He has ruined 8 eggs. And
Can I offer you a nice egg in this trying time?
just don't give them to him. Don't give them to
Yeah.
Tubby. That's all I'm
Yeah,
saying.
Tubby will fuck him up.
Tubby will fuck him up.
Welcome to the Egg Cast, folks.
And then-
We could just again, so we had kind of talked about this beforehand, that we this movie doesn't require a walkthrough as much as it does kind of like picking out individual scenes that stick out.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so like the father, we had kind of mentioned it before. The father had come back and she's asking him to throw them out, and like she can't even describe why she wants that to happen. But
Well,
then
I
he
mean,
starts to
that's mainly because he's asking for the final 4 eggs,
yeah, exactly.
while the other guy goes out and pries the clubs very aggressively, like like asks but doesn't really ask if he can try.
I
out the
love
club.
that.
I was just
He
about to
says
say.
may I as he's pulling the club out. He goes
Yeah.
may I as he already
Mhm.
has it.
And then he comes back tells the other guy, he's like, you should try it out. It's really dope. And then that's when the husband comes back and she's trying to push them both out because the guy just used the club. The other guy just is asking for the final four eggs, and she's just had enough for their shit. And he says,
I
Mhm.
I,
"Fucking
I think
come leave."
too. It's everybody in the family, like the wife, who I think holds kind of the viewer's perspective throughout the whole movie. Like she's the vehicle of the viewer,
Yeah,
kind of throughout from beginning to end. But also we're getting Georgie and George on the boat setting it up. Um, and they notice basically right after the charismatic one, I think it's Paul. Uh, he borrows the club, and they're hearing Lucky slash Ralphie bark the whole time. They're setting up the boat. They're yelling at him. Ralphie, Lucky, stop, stop! What are you doing? Like they're just like basically the whole time this dog, like Jake said, is just being an annoyance. And then all of
yeah,
a sudden they hear a sharp whimper, and there's a knowing look between George and Georgie. Uh, and George says, "I'll go take a look." Like, and then it's
Ah.
almost all of these characters coming to recognize there's something off. Like, because everything else is like, oh, we're getting shit done, we're stressing about this, we're getting this stuff set up, and that along with the viewer, it's almost like the viewer and the family are assembling the scene together. Like
yeah.
we're all figuring out where the pieces fit, and the big thing that starts to come into conflict post Fred coming over to set up the boat is, who are these two? Why are they so fucking weird?
Why are
Mhm.
they wearing gloves?
Yeah.
They don't like germs.
Back in the day, I
Yeah,
just thought they were
eczema.
golf gloves, and I was just like, "Oh, I love golf."
Oh yeah, because
Like,
they look like golf
yeah.
clubs too.
I think in the original, when I saw the trailer,
Mhm.
I'm like, "Oh,
Yeah.
like," because I like the look of golf clubs. Like, anytime I'm on a golf course, I'm like, "Oh,
Yeah.
I just wear these all the time."
Yeah, for sure.
If they love golf, I don't know if
Again,
this is
I'm gonna
elitist.
kill a rich family.
Yeah.
If
So it's
they
like when you're on like a in a lake house area where there's a bunch of rich people that golf, like those kids don't look like they're suspicious with white
No.
gloves on.
yeah.
Because a
Yes.
lot of people, they look like golfers.
Yeah.
I feel like if they loved golf though and they saw a set of Callaway clubs, like I feel like they'd seen them before. If you golf
Yeah.
regularly,
Oh, for
Yeah.
why
sure.
do you need to try out the
But
golf clubs?
Callaway those are a great set of clubs.
Yeah, yeah.
They can't
I
afford it.
I
Common.
personally can't afford Callaway.
Yeah.
Uh,
I have a Callaway driver that I paid $50 for.
I have a pitching
what?
wedge.
Yeah,
I have a set of wedges that are
Facebook
Callaway.
Marketplace.
no work friend.
Oh, oh.
My
Um,
brother paid like 2,500 for his set of Callaways.
Oh my gosh.
I've
Jesus
lost a pitching
Christ.
wedge that
Yeah,
wasn't mine.
Was that mine?
That was yours. I lost a pitching
Eh,
wedge. Yeah.
you fucker.
I owe you a pitching wedge.
so all right, so the dad shows up to kind of check on the sound and everything that's going on. Wife's trying to kick him out. She's like, initially he's kind of like, what's this hysterical woman up to? Like she's acting like a real woman. Um,
Real gash.
just kidding, guys. Just kidding. Um, and she and does the wifely thing of like, I probably have my reasons for trying to kick him out. So like, can you fucking kick him out? And and then he's like, you know what? It's probably better that you guys leave. And they have an altercation, and Peter and Paul are trying to mansplain to him of why why his wife is acting hysterical, and it doesn't really push him over to the limit until was it Paul or no Peter threatens to break the husband's eggs,
Oh
and,
yeah,
and
yeah,
the
yep.
the husband slaps him in the face. And whenever I watch this film, I always is one of those films I always watch of like on rewatches. I always kind of like in my mind like think of whether or not whether or not the scenario could have gone differently. Like, do I guess Ryan's going PP right now, but one of the questions I kind of want to ask everybody is, does everybody have like a mind canon version of whether or not this, you know, do you think that either of these antagonists would have, have ever let people live based on how they react to these situations, these trying to borrow eggs and kind of situations? Like, do you think that there's any scenario in which these antagonists would let any family live, or do you think that no matter what, that every family that these two guys come in contact with, that they're going to die? Or do you
I
think that
think
you can kind of politely leave these situations and just put up with all their mental abuse?
I think that's the fucked up part about it, is that there is nothing you can bargain with. That they are they're sociopaths to the most extreme degree, to where you can't bargain with them with anything other than possibly the lives of each other. But even there's a Deus ex machina for that. So it's there is you can't offer them money, you can't offer them sex, you can't offer them whatever. Like there's nothing to offer these people. There's no point. Which that's the whole thing, is that that's why it's so terrifying, because there's no escape. You're fucked immediately. You know what I mean? It's like we were talking about with in Color of Space, or Color Out of Space, or whatever, where it's like once the color was there, they were fucked up already.
Yeah.
You
It
know?
sucks and it
And
burns.
and
Yeah.
spoiler, but yeah, if you have a remote that you can rewind time and
Yes.
Yeah.
play
Yeah.
in your favor, then
Yeah.
Well,
there's no out of
It-
that's
out
what
of
I'm saying. The only emotion that they showed, that Paul showed, we can fast forward. It doesn't matter. Like I said, we were gonna jump around with this
Oh,
anyway.
yeah. Yep.
You know what I mean? Later on, the one glimmer of hope you get is when Anne grabs the shotgun and is able to shoot uh Paul, or Peter. Um and Paul's like, fuck, where's the remote? Where's the remote? And he grabs the remote and rewinds time and stops her from getting the shotgun. So it's like
Yeah.
there
Maybe if
is no
yeah.
there's nothing. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? There's no way to get out of it.
And that's like, at least for me as a viewer, when I watched the American version, that's like the moment I got this movie, where
Mhm.
I was like, oh, there's nothing we can do. Like, there
Yeah.
is, because like I said, I watch a lot of these films, these kind of disaster, like tragedy films, and I always, on rewatches, I kind of like do this mind canon of like, all right, if they did this, what could they have, not had gotten to this situation, which obviously doesn't make a good film, but like I just, that's how I watch films. And
And oh, sorry.
but with this film, you can't, yeah, there just seems like there's nothing you can do.
And I think you bringing this up as the nexus point, like to where the patriarch of the family is, and again, I originally got into, I went deep and I delved deep into the philosophy of this movie,
And the
and
book.
I'm just gonna avoid like the insanity and just sounding like there's so much incompetence I could bring to the philosophical discussion of this, but like going into one of the stated influences of this movie is Jean Baudrillard, um, and the the thing, I guess it's tough to go into the meaning of any of this stuff, but like I think when I originally watched this movie, I thought there was deeper meanings, like them taking the patriarch of the family out at the knees, and
Yeah.
then from then on, all acts of violence are either brought on by the antagonists or the mother or the child. Like the
Yeah.
child is seen um, holding the gun, and those are the glimmers that give you hope against it. But I
Yeah.
think the control, like setting up those antagonists as basically like, I almost saw them as like the future. Like you see everyone else as like either an idea of optimism, or the child, like the stereotypical ideas of like, or I guess the imagery of a child or a dog, even like the first we haven't got into it yet, but like because that's part of their game is him holding up the golf ball. Is like the first thing they kill is a dog.
Mm.
Like the idea, like when I saw the dog, like I thought of like, well, when I tried to delve into the meaning, which later on I realized was kind of useless, was like, well, when I think of dogs, I think of like cynicism. Like they killed the cynicism right off the bat, and then like they took the dad out at the knees, like so he couldn't. Like that's like basically the old guard not being able to defend the ideas of the future, and then the the killing of the child and the survival of the mother to see it all to where it's like it's it's all helpless, but it sets you up to think like, oh, there's different degrees and different roles that like these like they almost play different positions off each other and give
Mhm.
you like a false sense of like, well, what is this person going to do, uh like what is the idea of like motherhood, or at the end, like, and we'll get into that more, is like the idea of them having the loss of a child and how do you proceed. Like it's kind of a mute, I'm jumping around, but like they're kind of like struggles when they leave the house. Like I think that's one of the more interesting parts of the film too, is like how do you, it's almost like symbolic. If I thought this movie held any sort of meaningful symbology like coming like through at the end, but it's like when I was first watching this, I'm like, well, that's kind of like dealing with the death of a child or moving on or proceeding or trying to like keep your wits about you. It's like
Yeah.
all of those things come rushing in, and it's all as hopeless as each other. And I think that's what's meant to be conveyed in this film, is there is no point where the antagonists aren't in control, and that's meant to be felt by the audience.
Yeah, and I think I do think it is intentional that the the fact that the first two kills that we visibly kind of know about um is they kill a dog and they kill a child, and so like through the first kills, because those are two kind of like a lot of movies will not do either. You kind of know like off the bat like this movie does not give a fuck, and it's going to it's there's no one nothing sacred in this film, and like that this movie has one ultimate ultimate message, and that main message is
Everybody's dying, bitch.
that's it.
You know what I think we should do from this point forward? I think we should just talk about the individual games.
Yeah.
Um, Going through. Ian was nice enough in our Google Doc to put a little notch for game in each of them. So we obviously talked about the classical music guessing one, which was the first game, but the first fucked up game, which other Jake had mentioned, was the guessing game with the golf ball.
Yeah.
He pulls the golf ball out of his pocket and says like, "What is this?" And this is after the father had already gotten his knee smashed in, and he just says golf ball, and he's like, "Why was it in my pocket?" Because he didn't hit it, but that's what said he went out to do. So when he grabbed that golf club and went outside, it was presumed that he was going to be testing out the golf club on the golf ball that he grabbed, but he still has the golf ball. So we know obviously he killed the dog because the dog stopped barking around the same time. Then the other game was the hot and cold to find the dog, which was fucked up.
Yeah. Yeah, my girlfriend wants to know why we're watching all these movies with like dead dogs. Like every movie, like
Well, Shining doesn't have a dead dog. Wait.
yeah, so Colorado Space, the dog, I
Yeah.
mean, that
Yeah.
wasn't
Color
like
Space,
graphic,
yes. 30 Days
but
of Nice yet.
3 Days and Nights had
Yes.
dogs.
Oh,
This
so many
like both
dogs.
So
versions of both
so
versions of
three
this
out
had
three out of
dead
five.
dogs.
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah,
Better than dead cats.
yeah, and they're all German shepherds too.
Oh, that's true. It's just such a killable
Well,
dog, apparently.
I
uh,
know.
The
in the
Watchmen.
Austrian
Oh my
version,
god.
Yeah,
it's German
The
Shepherd and
yeah,
weirdest.
Golden Retriever in
Uh,
the American.
that was sad.
She finds the dog after playing hot and cold, and it just falls out of the car when she opens
Yeah.
it.
Dude, it's
The
so
way,
it
Right.
fucking always
Flips out
it,
like
it
it.
always bums me out. This is probably the most upsetting dead dog scene I've ever seen.
Yeah.
the way it flops is rough.
Oh, just life.
It's
Yeah,
a
life.
rough
It's so
flop.
believable
Yeah.
for at least for me. I don't know. It
Oh no, it is.
every fucking time I watch it.
I think they had to rewind a few times. Like they're like, let's get this flop right.
Yeah.
Like
yeah.
a few
Yeah,
times
that-
they opened it up and it was just a dead duck sitting, and they're like, nah, we want the flop.
Yeah. Oh, for
Yeah.
sure.
You know, he's using the remote without us knowing.
So so they do that. They come in. We kind of you kind of see it like a dynamic between the two antagonists. The one is eating, and the other um, seemingly main antagonist starts calling him Tubby. Tubby
I
doesn't like it.
I
Sorry?
will say
Tubby, tubby.
before this, like even before like the golf scene, and this ties back into how they treat each other, is one of the inspirations for these antagonists is Leopold and Loeb, serial killers from Chicago, um,
Mhm.
and like the relationship between two utter psychopaths who are intelligent, college educated, and we get a glimpse of when he says like he grabs him a chair and like says, "Hey," like it's right after they break George's kneecap or they hit him with the golf club. They say like, "I'm gonna like grab him a chair." Like I think he says like Peter is pre-med or something like that, and we get the first idea of their social class in dialogue, other than just how they look and where they are. Well, I guess there is one earlier when they're at the gate. They mention like, oh, Fred has a son that age. Maybe they're friends from university or something. But
Yeah.
that ties back into the inspiration of Leopold and Loeb, like how there is like two university boys, handsome, like well educated, as far as from what we are to believe about these two, um, upper class, well educated, like well off. That obviously that narrative starts to turn on itself when you realize you can't trust what either of these people can say, but we get
Yes.
hints at these are two well off, high status young men.
Yeah.
You
And
get
this.
hints at that, but the problem is that that was one of the stories. So when they're asking why they're doing it, like why they're doing this, and Paul does the initial explanation about how Peter had a fucked up upbringing, he had an alcoholic father, all his brothers are drug addicts and shit, and then he's like, none of that's true.
Yeah.
And he's like, actually we're both like, or he's like a rich snob, he's spoiled rotten, he's like, is that version
Jaded.
better, or would you like another one? You know what I mean? Like, so it's like we don't know the truth about these people. They
Yeah. It's
weren't
very Dark
re-
Knight Joker.
I love Yeah, I love how he turns it in and basically says like we're here for you. Like we need your participation for this to
Yeah.
work.
Mhm.
Like or in order to like almost like get off. Like we need you like to buy in. And I think it's almost like they're directly talking to the audience there.
Yeah.
Like
Oh,
Yep.
that's what the
we need
whole
your
Absolutely.
I think the one that was directed most of the audience was when the father says, we get it, or I get it, or whatever, and he says, oh, you get it. Like, I think that was directed at the audience
Yeah,
as like,
absolutely.
oh, you think you get it, you think you get what's going on here, like,
Tell me he gets it.
yeah, exactly, yeah, Tubby, hey Tubby, he gets it, like, that's fantastic, you know what I mean? It's like, you don't fucking get it. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
you, and even if you do, it's not going to save you.
By the end of the
But-
movie, you probably still fucking won't get the. If you read Jean Baudrillard and read his work or this thing or that thing, it's like you still will come into this movie being like, oh, this is what it is, and that's why I think it's done so well. It's like it is pretty much surface level, but you don't want it to be. Like the
Yeah.
audience almost doesn't want it to be, but it still just is.
Yeah.
It's like
Mhm.
And so
existence, man.
and so Paul tells the family that let's play a game that in was it 12 hours roughly from then by 9
Yeah, he's a
a.m. by 9 a.m. that all three of them will be dead.
kaput.
And,
In the
and
Austrian movie, that's when they turn on the lights. Like he's like, "Oh, it's getting dark in here," and then he asks for the time.
mm,
Yeah. So yeah, 12 hours to live. Um, and it, I love the the fourth wall breaks and shit when he just keeps like he'll like occasionally like he'll look at the camera and like say something like asking the
Yeah,
audience.
and like again, kind of going back to my spoiler-free review, where I said that this movie is kind of like the a movie that makes you feel bad for watching it and
Oh,
makes
I
you
love
feel,
that. Yeah.
like where like that's kind of what really like sends that message home of like when he goes to he's like, yeah, yeah, I can't kill all of them because this movie's not long enough yet, kind of.
Yes, that was my
Yeah.
favorite part. I loved that. Where
I,
he's
lo-
like, they're like, why don't you just kill us all now? And he's like, it's not a
Yeah,
feature length film yet. And he
yeah,
looks at the audience. He's like, are you guys satisfied yet? Like,
yeah,
I love that part in your synopsis slash review was like it makes you feel like a little voyeur, like
Yeah.
looking
yeah,
in on this, and you're like, oh, this is so fucking weird.
Yeah.
But it's like also that's one of the the thing that brings out like that dark gallows type humor in yourself is being like, well, I'm here, I'm
yeah.
watching this. It's like you just have to enjoy it where you can, or take whatever meaning you can, even though again you get to a point where you're like, oh, it's fucking meaningless.
Yeah, like Anne was like, "Why don't you just kill us now?" And they're like, "You because there's an importance of entertainment."
Yeah,
Yeah.
Like
hmm
that. To me, that was like one of the more important quotes in the
absolutely.
movie for
Are
sure.
you
that
not
if you're gonna encapsulate the movie into one quote, it's that.
Oh,
You know what I
absolutely.
mean?
That's yeah,
It's like
Yeah.
that. If you could find a point in this movie, that's it. And I think that's like very
It's the
interesting.
fact that we're entertained by violence, and the director does not want us to be entertained by violence, basically.
yeah.
You know?
Which is all it's all off screen, you know.
And they did it by
Most of it,
not.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, they did it by not showing much violence too,
Yeah.
which is
They just
It shows
implied it.
it
yeah,
shows the fallout,
yeah,
you know, which I
Yes.
think is he's saying is the most important thing, you know, for the viewer is to
Dude,
process
I
that.
didn't even put that together. They don't show the only kill they technically show is him them pushing her into the water, but that you don't see her drown.
yeah. You
Like,
don't.
Or the remote scene where
Yeah,
they kill Tubby
you,
yeah,
is the most on-screen Hollywood looking, you know,
yeah.
as far as like Final Destination looking like death
Yeah.
scenes. That's the one.
yeah.
I mean, other than that, it's just the post. It's what you see
It's what
post
we
mortem.
want to see, but he doesn't show us.
No,
Yeah.
he
That's
edges
a
us.
big part of his intention with this movie.
Yeah. So
Absolutely.
I kind of back to the walkthrough. We get to one of the more memorable scenes, at least for me, where the two are talking. Tubby's eating, and Paul kind of makes him feel like a fat piece of shit for eating, and talks about how and I'm just gonna go through the lens of the American version. He talks about Naomi Watts and about whether or not Naomi, a woman like Naomi Watts' character, whether or not she would sleep with someone like Tubby, and that that she's not that bad looking or whatever. And then they situations getting awkward. They tell the son to come over. We're gonna play a new game. Starts taking off the pillowcase, and one of my like most quoted scenes or quoted lines from this is like, "Let's play a game called Cat in the Bag and see if Mom's titties zag." And
Yeah, yeah,
so they do that, and it's after that it stops being fun. It stops being an enjoyable scene. It gets awkward again, and she takes off her clothes. And thankfully, you don't have to go through that awkwardness of actually see her, like a wide pull back shot of her getting naked in front of these two dudes. Thankfully, they
they show the husband's face during it,
yeah,
which
dude, it
is
fucking
like
sucks.
what
that's
what
almost
a
worse.
what
Uh,
a cook.
Such a good
Yeah.
decision.
Like he wasn't he couldn't watch her. He
He
No.
was
they make him say, "Sweetheart,
Yeah,
take off your clothes."
yeah,
Yeah.
Like
yes.
he makes him say like she is defiant, and he's like he's pulling on the Georgie's head, you know,
Yeah,
essentially
Mm.
making him squeal and being like, "Tell your wife to take off her clothes." Like it's
yeah,
such a brutal like way to do that scene, and
And
it's
it
and
wasn't even
the
for
close shot.
sexual gratification.
No, absolutely
And
not.
it,
It's control the
yeah.
entire way.
yeah, nothing. Not. I guarantee you, neither of them were boning up.
yeah,
Like it had nothing to do with that. It was just to fuck with their heads.
And to compare the two films, I personally feel like if you're going to compare the two films, as far as the husband, I think Tim Roth did a really good job as far as looking the main character in the eye and be like, I'm not gonna fucking use it. Where you could see through his eyes that he wanted to tear the guy a new asshole. When he said that, say sweetie or whatever he tells him to say.
Oh yeah, he
Yes.
And
says it almost sarcastically. He's like, "Sweetheart,
yeah,
take off your
and
clothes."
it's
Yeah.
One factoid I've kind of been waiting for a good time to bring it up. It was either this one or when Georgie's dead. Spoilers.
Spoiler.
Hey, this is our section. You're just trapped in here with us. We've kidnapped you. Um, is in the Austrian version the female lead. I forget her name. I mean, it's in the doc, and I just don't have it open. Hold on, I'm going to start over by saying her actual.
Suzanne Lothar.
There you go. Ian said it. Susan Lothar, and what's the father's name?
Ulrich Moch.
They're married. They're married in real life.
Oh.
So that adds another element to it. And also in real life, he died of stomach cancer before this movie came out. I think he died in 2005 before the American version came out. And then she killed herself or completed suicide, like, I think after this movie came out. But they were like, I didn't even realize that they were an actual couple.
Oh my fucking god.
Yep, and they're both dead. They both died before they, I think, even were like 55.
That's wild.
Yeah. So this movie fucking killed these people in
Oh.
real life. Um,
Holy
no, I thought that was
shit.
kind of sad. I'm like, when I'm rewatching these scenes, I'm seeing an actual married couple. Which, granted, it's not even a Hollywood couple. I mean, these are Austrian movie stars, which they've been in. That was another thing too. Is Haneke worked with? It's almost like you see like directors and actors. It's kind of incestual, like who they'll work with. Like they get a rhythm with certain actors and actresses. And these were a group that he had worked with before, and they're super talented. They did a great job, and it adds a certain sadness to it. To be like, it's already brutal watching these people act in this movie, like the scenes they're put through, and then again on top of it, it's like they actually are both had it
Definitely.
a rough slate of it in the real world here.
Oh.
My
Yeah.
god.
So yeah,
If
we're
you
gonna
weren't bummed out enough as it is.
we're gonna yada yada through some of the film, and let's just kind of fast forward to the scene where the one's antagonist goes to the kitchen while the son dies off screen because he seems to make a movement and Tubby shoots him.
It's the Eeny Meeny Miny Mo game. They play. They're playing. So he gets the shotgun. They have two shells, and one's for one of them, one's for the other. And this was another scene where it's like it's funny in that it shouldn't be funny, and so they play Eeny Meeny Miny Mo. Paul walks to the kitchen to get some food. You hear a gunshot, and then the parents like freaking out, and eventually it goes back in, and you just see the kids like feet and then a bunch of blood spattered on the wall, and Paul is yelling at Peter, being like, you don't shoot the one that you landed on, you shoot the one that you that's left or whatever. Like he was like explaining like how the game worked. Like he's like basically being like, you played the game wrong, and then they're like, oh, we fucked this up, we gotta go, and then
Yeah, they
and then
leave.
and then they leave. They're like we're so sorry. they just because
Yeah.
they fucked up the game and they left. And it was like,
Yeah.
what? And then the most difficult scene probably for the actors to act out.
Yeah.
This was all one shot. And
Yeah.
the mom is sitting there for what felt like
It was a
good
half-hour scene.
half
Yeah.
hour.
Yeah.
You might think that you're like, shit, did I pause this on
I
accident?
know.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah,
Yep.
I think it's
Other than for
another.
the rally car racing.
I think
Well,
it's
yeah,
Okay,
that
yeah.
helped it.
I thi-
Watching and listening NASCAR just for like those
No.
scenes, like that's frustrating enough.
And she turned the
Yeah.
No.
TV off.
that's
That
That
was
is
like,
It's a funny
I
scene.
know. Yeah.
this.
The
It's
first thing
genuinely
she did
funny to
was
be
get
like,
up.
that's the first thing I think of
Oh, I
too.
know.
Is to be like, I got to get this
I
fucking TV
I
off.
cannot listen to NASCAR
This
anymore.
this scene makes me think of when I found out my grandfather died,
Hmm.
and I was watching Family Guy,
Well, shit,
and
dude.
watching anything that was lighthearted just felt like a punch in the dick.
uh,
And so I think it says a lot about what grief does to a person, where it's just like sometimes you just want to get your mind off of shit, but like when it happens, like her first instinct after they leave is just to shut off the fucking noise, shut off the
Yeah.
the the
Yep.
the trivial entertainment and the the shit that doesn't matter because something really really traumatic just happened to her.
Yeah.
And it, like I said, like whenever I watch this film and I think about that, that's her, the first thing that happens is it just draws me back to the moments, to me, that of when I found out that different family members die, that like the first thing you want to do is just kind of disconnect from anything that might be serve as a trivial distraction.
Which is a great use of sound too, because after you turn that off, it's just silence again.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Back to
absolutely.
silence.
Yeah.
mhm.
Well, and again, that's another intentional choice in this movie, was that there is no emotionally manipulative like soundtrack. Is like there's even good ways to do it to where it's like, oh, it's a underscore to where it was like it's subtle,
Yeah, the
but he
silence is loud.
chose complete silence other than Bonehead by whatever, I forget the name of the band, Naked City, and the classical music in the beginning. The rest is just
In NASCAR.
raw. Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
NASCAR.
exactly. And there's also a scene later on. I know it's in the Austrian version, um, but it's in both scenes. Other than the eating, is like the father, once she leaves, which we'll get to later, is he tries to eat something, and I think, like I said, I think that's at least in the Austrian version. But it's like
Uh-huh.
he
It's in
tries to
both
just
versions.
eat some bread,
He spits
and
it
it's
out.
just like so emotional. It's just like you can't eat, you can't
Yeah.
like you're trying to do menial tasks, you're trying to dry
Yeah.
out a cell phone battery, and you're just like, what the fuck am
Yeah.
I doing? Like
Yeah.
Yeah, no,
what?
yeah, it's
Like
another thing
you
that
want to
brings me back to like,
autopilot, but sorry.
yeah, what it's like to deal with that, what it's
Yeah.
like to deal
Mhm.
with trauma, and to like where like shit like just taking care of yourself doesn't make sense.
And
Right.
he does those masterfully. Like he makes simple choices that just make you address those, like as an audience member, like, oh shit, like that is like touching me. Like he doesn't like overdo it, and again, he doesn't add like emotionally like witchcrafty like music to where it's like, oh, I'm being manipulated to feel a certain way. Like this is a simulation of like emotions for, and he's just like, no, feel what you're gonna feel, but I'm gonna try and do my best to lead you there with like with my art,
Yeah.
Mhm.
which I think is great. It was again a reason why I adore this movie.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so the wife decides to put some clothes on to try to find help. The father uh takes out a hair dryer, is trying to dry the phone to try to also call help. And this movie tries to give you some semblance of hope when that all happens. It builds up
Mm.
to, I'm gonna yada yada again. If you guys fucking make me rewind again, I'm gonna fucking I'll flip this
I
table
I
over.
I will say I'm gonna go back.
Ah!
I'm sorry.
I'm not doing this walk. I'm not doing walkthroughs anymore because
I
I
know.
keep on trying to yada yada, and everybody's like, "No, fuck your yada yada."
I'm going
Right?
back to. I
Yeah,
might
go
not do this
back to
because.
what you want to talk about.
Sorry.
No, it's all right. No, it's good. But I feel like my yada yadaing is not
How
working.
George gets the gun
Yeah.
is
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
We did.
we
Yeah.
we see him escape and go to another house.
Yep.
Um, and that's another one of those scenes that I almost want to just yada yada and skip over, but it's a good. It's especially in the American version. Michael Pitt steps into scene with him, like he's basically stalking him through this house. You see a dead, in the Austrian version, it's Sissy. In the American version, it's Jenny. It's the one who the kid was looking forward to see, like his friend. He was looking forward to see. He sees her on almost like a foreshadowing to how he dies, laying on the bathroom floor, and I think that's why the gun is sitting there too. I think they shot the Jenny or Sissy in the bathroom, which is like, again, we don't see how Fred or Eva die.
Yeah.
We just see them in the yard, and it's like minutes, after that they basically drop their plaything of Fred, Eva, and Jenny, which I mean, maybe it's implied that's how they were manipulating maybe Fred and Eva at the beginning or whatever when we first see him in the yard playing golf. But Georgie grabs the gun, and uh, Michael Pitt's character walks in. It's a well lit scene, and he basically tells him, like, he basically instructs him how to shoot him, and just walks in, never fearing that the kid is actually get the shot off. One, because he probably knows that the gun is empty because he emptied it into poor little Jenny over there in the bathroom.
Oh yeah.
And two, because I think he has complete control and confidence over the situation. He tells you need to cock it, and then he does that sarcastic little like,
Yeah.
and
Boom.
and that's how the gun he sits down before the scene. That's all I'll say about it.
I do
Yeah,
also
It
wanna
reminds
add
me
to
of the
that.
knife on the boat as well.
Yeah, I think that was a pretty important scene.
Yeah.
Too.
I just like to
Yeah,
remind
I know.
everybody that
One of
Georgie
the
just
few.
had a pants full of pee this entire
Yeah.
Piss
time.
him.
He
Piss
did.
himself.
Piss
Oh, yeah.
pants, dude.
He's not house trained.
Yeah.
Oh.
No. I'm sorry, just to go back real quick. Like, so in the beginning scene with the classical music,
Fuck off.
I like to jump to the last scene
Wait,
of the
there-
movie. We can go back,
Uh,
but
it's against
Honestly,
Jake.
let's just jump around.
That was against host Jake, not you. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
I'm
It
dead
was-
inside. I'm dead inside. That's all I'm saying.
That's what this movie does.
I'm not doing. Somebody else can walk through next week. I'm not walking.
I'll do it. I'll do it. I just didn't want to do this one.
Everybody's dying, bitch.
That's how I.
Yeah, for sure.
right.
So,
keep it.
So where are we, guys? Canonically,
um,
Fucking nowhere.
well, I think so. She tried to escape and she gets caught and brought back.
Yeah.
Uh,
I'm
sorry.
gonna throw a picture in the doc. It's after Anne gets caught. It's in the
Google Doc?
The Austrian version. Yeah. So there's a Monsters Inc. scene. You know how when Anne was like gagged, like how gross that was.
Oh,
Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
with her lips the way they were like,
Her
dude, they were like
lips.
a perfect circle. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So I just
It's
put
like
a
a
picture in the
butthole.
doc. It's I don't know if anybody can see that.
No.
It's like-
Oh.
you can I mean, we can cut this out completely.
that's
But I thought
that's
that
be the
was
thumbnail for the
it's
episode.
a
oh
thumbnail.
yeah. It was-
Hey, the scene in Monsters Inc.
Yeah.
where Randall's assistant
Yeah,
gets
he gets
the scream
the s-
sucker on his
the
face.
yeah, and he sucks the life out of him, and all that's left are his
That's
lips.
such an
And his
out of
lips.
pocket scene too. I hated
That
that.
is
Oh,
so true, though.
So frightening.
That is so
It's-
true.
Scary.
I feel
Oh
like you
my
could write a
fucking God.
like a college thesis essay on like the comparison between those two
Oh,
movies.
absolutely. I thought that was so funny.
Like I'd hand that in.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, so yeah, that was
Oh,
my input for this.
That's
thank
good,
you.
that's good.
Thank you.
episode.
All right,
Episode.
so
Top tier.
so they bring him back. They bring her back. She's looking like the guy from Monsters Inc. And so basically, at that point, you kind of understand that there's no hope in this film for the most part, except for when they're believe Beavis is explaining that we want to play a new game of picking which weapon one of you is going to be killed with, whether by knife or by gun. And you get your last, I would say, your last moment of hope in which she grabs the shotgun and shoots Tubby. And then Beavis grabs the remote control, rewinds it, and then takes the shotgun away from her before she's able to shoot Tubby. And
Mm.
and then does anybody else have something to add to the scene?
Or he shoots the dad
Shoots-
on the floor, but you don't see it.
Yeah.
You just see the
Shoots the
gun
dad. They
recoil.
move on. They're loading her onto the boat, and Tubby is talking about something that I'm assuming other Jake will want to expand on. That is. I'm sorry. That was not supposed to sound passive aggressive. I'm just. I'm trying to figure out what.
Are you
is-
saying I'm expansive slash tubby?
No.
Uh,
I
I wanted
figured-
to. I wanted to mention. I was going to mention the raincoats. I love the raincoats. It just adds that like ridiculous nature.
Well,
Another thing I mentioned or I noticed too was that the quilts. There's so little like it's well used, but like uh like the scenery, I guess, or the the staging in the house, like it was the boat. It was shot for shot. It was the same in both movies, but the quilt was traditionally one. In the Austrian one, it was like traditionally like German, like Austrian, like folksy, and in this one, it was traditionally American, and like a lot of stuff stayed the same, but I like those little tweaks that was
Yeah.
made for like the interior of both of the set designs.
not to not to rewind to myself also, but
God damn it.
the prayers were also differently when they asked the wife to say a prayer.
Yeah.
Oh, right,
prayers
right, right.
were different.
Yeah, I think just culturally, like those little things. Even like the fridge was another one of those things to where it was like you saw the interior of the fridge, and they were both like healthy foods. Like I think Austrians, just because like they're Europeans and they're just naturally healthier. Like, and then in this one, I think it's just a more modern, affluent family who's like got like the gluten free stuff and like the nice tenderloin cut steak and
Organic bananas.
yeah, like Stonyfield Farms. Shout out, sponsor us. Like the yogurts and like the muesli core type shit. But a lot of that stuff is like it stays the same, but it's nice to notice those little difference. Again, the inseam of the shorts on our Paul character. You know,
Yeah,
the
there's
European one
much
just
shorter
so
shorts
short.
than the Australian.
Oh my god.
So much
such
more
short.
leg.
Yeah.
But again, we're leading out to the boat. I thought it was cool, like that ridiculous look of all three of them in raincoats. It's almost like Paddington or something.
Yeah.
Like out of like they look
Yeah.
all look ridiculous, and like she's bloody. They got blood on their gloves, and like you can see like Tubby like wash off his gloves. Like she's completely gagged, completely tied up. And we're heading
And
towards.
they're still being polite. I love that. Like
absolutely.
when he
Like
goes
wiping
to
her hair out of her face.
yeah, when he goes to like pick her up, he's like, if you cooperate, I won't have to hurt you. You're gonna get hurt like this. Like and even giving her a raincoat was like they're like, oh, we don't want you to get wet. Like
I'll take care of you.
And even them saying I mean, we're getting to it, but like when they like I love how he's just like I like we still had an hour. What are you doing? Like they put her overboard. Like he kisses her on the cheek and unceremoniously throws her overboard.
Yeah.
But I love how he's just like I can't deal with her and sail. Like it's just
Yeah.
too much. He's
It's
just like
too
I can't.
hard.
Trust me, I can sail.
Yeah, like this doesn't mean that much to me. I'm just gonna
Yeah.
throw her off.
He's like, plus I'm getting hungry.
Yeah. Oh,
And
I love
and
that.
Tubby's talking about how whether or not what's the if something it happens in like the fictional universe, did it really happen kind of thing, and the two are kind of debating that, you know, which I kind of think that is like, you know,
That was for the audience.
Haneke's kind of statement of like, yes, this is simulated violence, but you should still be upset by what you're seeing. Even though it's, you know, obviously you know that all these actors are alive, you should still be disturbed by all this violence and all this pointlessness that is connected to this violence. And obviously most of us don't really care because you know what?
Everybody's dying, bitch.
And that's how we all feel as like nihilistic Americans.
As far as the philosophical core of this movie, again, I mentioned Jean Baudrillard. Two of the books that I tried to read for this movie and I just got lost in the sauce on both these. I'm like, this is too fucking dense, which makes sense. But if any of our listeners want to go back and try or are interested in even looking up summaries, there's plenty of good like podcasts. I think even I was mentioning Ian, like Christina P used to do like a philosophical podcast. I think it's called That's Deep Bro or something. I'm not fucking advertising for her. She's got enough people.
Yep.
But she's a fan of Baudrillard. He wrote in 1981. He wrote something called Simulacra and Simulation, and that's kind of where the defining moment of what they're talking about is about. Is if it's in a simulation, kind of everything is like he's like I've mentioned earlier. He follows like Foucault is a philosopher who kind of gets more into like post structuralism to where like more of Baudrillard was we create simulation. Everyone does. It's all relative to what you're experiencing, and I think Haneke like puts that to his audience is like, well, what do you see in this thing? And it's like I think that's what he wants is like to pull that out of his audience. And another one I read for this was in 1976. He wrote, even before Simulacra and Simulation, he wrote Symbolic Exchange and Death. And that one, Baudrillard is it's such a bummer to read. Like his views on what our future looks like through simulation and like the death of like a meta narrative and the ideas we create as like in Western canon or an Eastern canon or whatever our overall like overarching views of like whether it's provided by the church or philosophy or uh, uh, like common ideals or whatever it is. Like I think that's represented by George in the film getting just taken out at the knees right at the beginning. Like we don't have a shared narrative. You're pulling meaning out of whatever you can, and it's in the end hopeless.
Yeah.
It's just
Oh
eggs.
yeah, it's
So
just eggs. It's all
Eggs,
eggs.
yeah,
baby.
so they're talking about that, and they dump her in, and Tubby's just all like,
Miss Keisha. Miss Keisha. Miss Keisha. Oh my fucking god, she fucking dead.
and then they just move on, and then they end up. We didn't mention it, but they end up at a house that they had been visited by before earlier on in the film, uh, and he ends up doing the same thing all over again, asking for eggs, and she says, "I'll see what I can do," and then he looks around the house, looks at the camera, and then you end up getting attacked by that. What is it called? Naked City.
Naked
City.
City's Bonehead.
Bonehead.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then that's the movie.
That's the end. We made it through it, guys. That
Absolutely.
Hopefully not.
that was hard to do.
That was a tough one.
That was the toughest one we've done yet. That's a hard
lot-
movie to
Just
review.
like the movie, it reflects the
Yeah,
movie.
there
It's
were a
not
lot
bad.
of thoughts,
it really does.
thoughts all over the place.
Yeah, no, I mean,
Yeah.
I love this film, but like because of just the nature of it and how gross it makes you feel and how good it doesn't make you feel, and it's hard to give it for me to give it the high review, but it's on purpose that it's not, you're not supposed to feel good, and because of that, I do love the film, but I can't
Absolutely.
rate it super highly because of that.
I think we should either try and make a music video version of this movie, like circa what like Ryan was talking about last week with Fall Out Boy, like uh the 30 Days a Night.
Yeah.
I forget the name of the song. We should either
Little
make
less 16 candles.
yes. We should either pay homage as far as the music video, or someone should try and make a porno, like a triple X version of Funny Games.
Cuck porn.
Cummy games.
Yeah.
Well,
Does
speaking
that
of
lead into our next segment?
yeah, speaking of porno, let's go around and start with everybody's guesses for blow gibber of the week. I guess we'll start with Emily.
I have two. Does anyone have one?
I
I
have
have
one.
one.
The one
Barely.
people first.
Okay.
Since it's-
Let's start with other Jake first.
I had one. I had kind of ripped through right in the beginning. I was looking through it. It's right when uh, Lucky was rummaging through the fridge, and she says, I forget exactly what she says, but she says basically like Lucky, get out of here. Someone call Lucky, and then he's just rummaging through that fridge. And like I said, I forget exactly what she says, but there's a quote in there that I'm like, oh, that'd be perfect for it, and I just don't have it up.
Yeah, but
Just
I'm in
the
another
sound
part of the
him
movie.
rummaging through the fridge.
Oh, just
Exactly.
yeah.
either way,
It's
I'll
not
be,
right.
I'll be generous with like if somebody gets exactly what, if I understand what you're talking about and it's what I've selected,
Exactly.
you will
Yeah.
still get uh
Credit.
pick of the week for
Fridge
the
scene,
Oh, yeah.
Good
Lucky.
shit.
We gotta mention that. That's something new that we've brought in is that if somebody guesses it right, they get to automatically pick the next movie of the
Yeah.
week without doing the wheel spin.
And basically the reason we've decided that is because I didn't realize until we've gotten a few weeks into this that it's actually harder for you guys to predict what my perverted mind will come up with. So
Yeah.
because of that,
Yeah.
You're pretty creative.
That's the best part of this segment for sure.
yeah. So all right. Well, Ryan, what do you think is blowjobber of the week?
It's Paul talking to Anne. And he says, "You have to admit, Anne, I'm being very generous here. You can prove to your pussy husband how much you love him." And I'm imagining like a cuckold scenario.
Aw.
All right.
Yeah, because he was
Sweet.
like in between friends. It barely cost you anything.
All right. Well, Ian, do you have
Such
one?
familiarity.
Is that one of yours?
Yeah. So I have one, and it's when they were playing the whether by knife or gun towards the end of the movie.
Mm.
Paul says to Anne, "You have to play the game, or I'll have to gag you again."
Hmm.
Yep. Yep.
Mm.
Oh, that's really good.
That's good.
That was
Alright.
mine.
Mine is Paul to Tubby, and he says, "You've just finished stuffing your face with that meat."
God damn it, that
yeah.
would have been good.
That's
I didn't
so
even think about
good.
that. Fuck, I didn't even think about that.
So
All right,
much
what's
sausage.
your other
That's
one?
a
I'll give
great
you. I'll
one.
give you the other one.
It's like it's. I don't remember what part of the movie it is, and it says, "And then they're gonna give us a thorough spanking."
All right.
Oh, that's when
A little too on
they're
the-
like,
Oh.
Your
they're saying they're
charade will
gonna
be
tell-
over.
Yeah, when they're basically like, we're gonna tell like your aunt and uncle how rude you've been or something like
Oh
that.
yeah, yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I like I said, I didn't find any that really tickled my pickle as far as candidates, but I did find one. So, without further ado, here is blowjibber of the week.
You should bring him a chair. You should take off his pants. He should sit down. You should bring him a chair.
Go get him a chair. Be careful.
Peter is he's a medical student. He can help you with it. Can you please take off your pants?
Yeah,
There
that,
you go.
that's it. It's just him Tubby
Yeah.
asking him to
Take
take
off
it,
his
take his pants off.
Take his pants off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh,
All right. Well, let's I guess we'll go into a game, right?
well, before we get into the game,
You wanna get-
did
you-
you want to?
Do the
Well, I was gonna say, did you want to play the interview that we did?
interview.
The interview me and you did.
What?
And then it's just
Oh.
another blowjob
You-
scene.
You don't remember the interview? Oh, okay, it's fine. I'll play it for you. Don't worry about it.
Okay.
Okay, welcome in.
Oh.
This is Ryan with Horrorphobia. I have my friend Jake here with me. Jake, I want to thank you for joining me today. Oh,
Okay.
you good, man?
Sorry.
Could I get you a glass of water or something?
Hey, I didn't eat all day. Leave me alone.
All right, all right. Okay, well, I guess I'm just gonna start out with asking the question that's on everybody's mind. Who is the most attractive member of the podcast? And I know it's me. You can say it's me.
No, not you.
What? If it's not me, then who is it?
Jake and Ian.
Wow. Okay, that kind of hurts my feelings, but all right, moving on. So you wanted to start this podcast because you're a lover of horror movies. you've watched a lot of horror movies in your time. So, uh, what have you learned from watching all of these horror?
You know what's funny about gay porn is when you're on the Pornhub gay porn
But-
thing, it doesn't do like tons of singles in your area. It's just ads for Craigslist because they know
Uh-huh.
they're like, just go to Craigslist. You
Yeah.
you find someone to suck your dick. You're fine.
Easy.
Oh, okay. That wasn't exactly my question. Is Emily there with you right now? I thought this was supposed to be a one-on-one interview.
She doesn't say anything.
Okay. Well, I guess moving away from the gay porn.
Another thing I've noticed
Oh my
through
God.
watching so much gay pornography
Is that-
is gay guys do not
Jake, I really have to insist that we change the subject.
gay guys do not do the that women do. Like that does not happen.
Oh, okay. Emily seems to be strangely okay with this habit of yours. Is this something that you guys like do together? Oh, wow. I mean, what happened the last time you tried to have sex without watching gay porn?
I fell asleep.
Holy shit. Okay. Well, I guess we're gonna move into maybe more of, I guess, a more sensitive topic. I know that we've made a lot of jokes that some would consider inappropriate on this podcast. There was some directed particularly at the Asian community, and I know we here at Horrorphobia want everyone to know that we have no ill will or negative feelings towards the Asian community. So, is there anything that you would like to say to that community right now?
What's up, you
Oh, fuck. Okay, well, that's all the time we have. Thank you so much for joining us at Horrorphobia Interviews. I'm Ryan. That was Jake.
fuck?
Okay, goodbye.
Awkward! You son of a bitch. You son
Oh,
of
God.
a bitch.
I remember that interview now.
I'll never get to be
Okay, you
governor.
guys remember that now? Okay.
I'll
Yeah.
never get to be governor.
AI has gone too far. Needs to be stopped.
Deep fake bullshit.
What are you talking about? That was clearly an interview that you rudely had Emily sit down for.
Well, fuck.
She's his handler.
Just in the corner.
I was
Alright.
so nervous. I was like, when I made that, I was like, this is gonna go one of two
That's
ways. It's
not-
either gonna be
that's not-
like hilarious or it's gonna be dead silent and they're gonna be like, nice, dude, afterwards.
Yeah.
Crushed it.
like I have no idea what's gonna happen.
The whole thing plays. We're just like, okay.
Quickly, let's
Alright,
rate that. Let's
great.
rate that interview, everyone.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, what do you guys think?
Yeah, for real.
Oh, just so you guys know, nobody is safe.
10 out of 10 falls asleep
shit.
during
Yeah,
one-on-one
we're putting a
missionary
lot of-
sex.
Yeah, a lot of faith in Ryan to do.
The more you talk in this podcast that I'm like fucking
shit.
guilty of is like the more he has power
I'll
to
look
just
down.
put words in our mouth.
Yeah,
Oh,
now it's just going to be a
I'm
direct
out. I'm fucking out.
accusation of you murdering someone at the institution.
Legally, I can't afford this. I've talked about killing people I've worked for.
Yeah.
I've berated the Asian community, the black community.
You'll all
Well,
be in
I
jail
mean-
by the end of the month.
I feel like
Oh,
everybody
absolutely.
knows that I fully support the gay porn community. Regardless
Oh, we all do.
what that interview sounded like. Love gay porn.
Yeah.
Big
We're
fan.
coming up on Pride Month here.
I love it. Well, I mean, honestly, I feel like with that interview, I feel like I feel like that's good enough for a segment. We can do the other segment shit, like move on, because we're gonna have to keep on.
Let's
coming
hammer
up.
out some games later.
Yeah,
Yeah, we'll do games another
we'll do-
episode.
We'll keep on pushing. Let's kick this can down the road.
Absolutely. That'll be one of our games. It's can
Kicking the can down the
kick
road.
can. So I guess let's go. Let's decide what movie we're gonna review next. We've got for right now, unless anybody wants to change it. Emily nominated Barbarian.
Yep.
Do you want to keep it at that?
Yes.
I don't remember who. I think somebody nominated Trick or Treat.
That was
me.
Ian.
Ian.
That was Ian.
I'll keep it. Yeah, I'll
Keep
it.
that. Okay.
Yeah.
Ryan's got Nope still.
I'm changing it to Pan's Labyrinth.
Pan's Labyrinth. Let me change
Okay.
that. Okay.
We're just only gonna do subtitles now.
Yep.
Okay. Yep.
last that I checked, this was an American podcast.
I'm hoping for a three-peat on my
Um,
part.
Jake,
So I can
Jake
lose some.
has has to change it because it was funny game. So what do you want to change it to?
Absolutely. I am taking the 1987 British, directed
British.
by Clive Barker, Hellraiser.
Oh,
Yes.
nice,
dude.
dude.
Love Hellraiser.
Oh, I thought you were saying the movie was called British. I was like, British.
Putting a classic on the board.
Yeah,
Hellraiser.
Hellraiser. Okay.
Um, and I've gone back and forth about what I want to nominate. But I feel like we need to get to a point so that our listeners understand what the baseline is for Ryan being spooked. Therefore, I
no.
have to nominate one that I think might upset him a little bit, not too much.
Yeah,
I'm not.
yeah,
I'm not.
Well,
yes, yes,
Absolutely.
yes,
We're
yes,
5
yes,
in. It's
yes.
probably time.
Yeah, this is
It's
not.
time.
This is not.
Well, then I'm gonna.
Hereditary. I'm sorry. What was that, Ian? Do you want to change yours?
No, nope, that's fine.
No, you want. Do
Trick
you
or
want to
treat.
change yours?
No, it's okay.
I've never
sure?
seen Hellraiser, but I was
Yep,
hoping
I'm
that
good.
with Hellraiser.
Do you want to change it?
Trick or
No,
treat's
I'm
pretty
fine.
spooky.
We can edit this out.
Yeah, I
Ian?
like. Nope, we're fine.
Again, it's
I
too
want
fun.
to see what you want to do.
Trick or treat. Okay.
Yeah,
Well, I'm
Daddy.
gonna nominate Insidious,
Oh,
Hell yeah.
okay, that's a good spook.
which Insidious has a fair amount of creepy imagery, but not
Yeah.
too much.
Yeah.
There is gonna be
Yeah.
some shit that will probably stick in Ryan's cute little head.
You
So
fucked me up.
yeah, I'm
Yeah.
gonna nominate Insidious.
That's good.
Nice. I like it.
So everybody's good with their choice. Nobody wants to change anything.
Nope.
Before I
Locked
spin.
in, baby.
Okay, we're gonna spin. If if other Jake's
Oh, Jake.
if other Jake's movie gets selected,
I'm-
that would be
I'm off the
that will be a
podcast.
hat trick. And we will do it, but he will not get a nomination next week.
I'll cut my dick off.
So he'll cut his
Live,
dick off.
live on air.
So all right, I guess let's figure out what movie we're gonna review next. Trick or treat.
Trick or
Nice.
treat.
Nice.
We
dude.
Just in time for Halloween.
Other Jake can save his dick. Yeah, for real.
all
Thank
right.
God.
There's a
It's
lot
I
of
another
live without my dick.
there's a lot of Halloween movies.
So yeah, so we're gonna do trick or treat next week. So watch that in
Nice.
preparation, and we will be reviewing it. And I feel like there's probably enough people that die in that film that we could do a fun little me, my mama, and Hitler. Bring it.
Oh
back
yeah,
to
Yeah.
Sure.
that
Yeah. Yeah.
grassroots game that we started. You know,
definitely.
the game that everybody's playing across the country, across the world.
Yeah.
Me, my mom, and Hitler. You know?
Yeah, of course. Follow us on Twitter at Horrorphobia Pod. And my Twitch is horror_phobia. I don't know what our Instagram is it just Horrorphobia Podcast?
Horrorphobia podcast. Yeah.
Horrorphobia Podcast on, and then do we even use our Facebook?
Yeah.
Oh, we do. It's
I
that
mean,
one's just like
It's connected to my Instagram. Like I'm not really gonna use it until we start getting like fan interaction. So once these episodes start dropping and we start getting fan interaction, I will stay as active as I can on the Facebook.
okay.
And to those fans, like in your off time, if you're a fan of this podcast, if you want to write a book about kidnapping a waspy family at their lake house, and when you eventually murder them, especially their child and their dog,
Uh-huh.
if you want to, in that blood, write the URL or like a link to our podcast in their blood on the wall in a book.
That's just
That's
free
word of.
publicity.
It's just good word of mouth.
Yeah.
You'll be our friend. You'll be in our little friend group for doing
We'll-
that. I
we
know
will
I'm
visit
going to
you
do
in
my
jail.
best
Yeah.
to write that
Yeah, yeah.
book.
If you as a listener want to suggest horror films, we're gonna add a sixth selection to our wheel. And so if you
Yes.
want to suggest movies, either direct message me on Instagram or email us at horrorphobiapodcast@gmail.com.
Feed us.
Yes.
And
No
and
hot
we
mail
will-
shit.
No hotmail shit. This is not
Instantly
2003.
rejected.
You get 2
Yes.
votes if it's through AOL though.
Yeah. If you have
Or in blood.
a email at juno.com,
Pictures only.
you get automatic choice. So
There
you
you
know,
go.
to all those Juno users, check it out.
Oh.
Dude, if Juno is still a web service or an internet service, I will be fucking floored.
It's a movie.
I would love
Everything
to get an
dies,
email from
nothing
somebody
matters.
that has something at juno.com. That would tickle my pickle. All the tickles.
And if you want to tickle his pickle, that's fine too.
Yeah.
That's also
So-
a DM situation.
You won't
That's
get
our-
anything for
our-
it.
Patreon tier number 3.
Well, thank you. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for
Thanks,
listening,
everyone.
and we will see you next week
Bitte,
with our
bitte.
review of Trick or
It's
Treat.
German.
Bitch.
Bye.
Bye.